All right, today we are joined by Faxon Childress, host of Faxon Sports with WCCP and 105.5 The Roar. Thank you for joining us, Faxon.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, guys. Always fun to catch up and chat.
Absolutely. Appreciate you giving us a little bit of time. I know you got a busy day. You got a USC Upstate game to call tonight, so I appreciate that. I do want to start. Um, I enjoyed listening to your perspective this past week or so on WCCP with Walt being out, and you kind of talked a couple Clemson fans off the ledge. It seemed like after that Duke loss. What were your initial takeaways after that first game of the season?
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, brutal result, right? You look at the final score and you look at how it negatively impacts Clemson and their season. And, it's a tough pill to swallow at first. It was a really tough pill for me to swallow as someone that was at the game and then had to drive 4.5 hours back the night of. So I got a lot of thinking time in on the way back. I was listening to the post game with Kwok and Donnell, and they did a good job on that as always. But, know that people are going to give Dabo a ton of crap for leaning into the fact that it was a statistical anomaly, and people are saying that he's avoiding accountability. It's not really the perspective I took away from it. I just think he's pointing out the facts, and the reality of the situation is you essentially had 3 red zone turnovers, 2 of which fumbles, and on 2 of those drives you were at the 1 yard line. And it wasn't on the 1 yard line on fourth down and you rolled the dice. It was you were on the 1 yard line on first and goal, and then Will Shipley false started, and then Klubnik took the sack, and then you missed the field goal. You were on the 1 yard line on first and goal again, and Phil Maffa, the Duke linebacker, just did a perfect job of hitting his helmet right on the ball. So it's an inexcusable loss, and I'm not making excuses for it, but I don't think it's that big of a reason to be concerned for Clemson fans. I still think Clemson has a chance to win 10 games this season. I still think Clemson has a chance to go to the ACC championship game. So brutal result, and I think Klubnik was also kind of getting the hammer, especially on social media from people. I didn't think Cade played that poorly. Obviously, the fumble was bad, and that's always on the quarterback in the zone read, regardless of what happens. It's always on the quarterback. But he made the right read, and he might have had a touchdown if he could have successfully pulled it. So Cade's got a long ways to go. There's going to be some growing pains, but I actually don't think it's been as bad as everybody is making it out to be right now through 2 games.
I agree. I was rewatching last night the Charleston Southern game. I was actually really happy with a lot of the play calls that we had, a lot of the route combinations that we had, a lot of meshes and posts and corners. Is kind of what I've been looking for from the offense. And like you said, Cade's performance has been a little bit overblown. Just take out the few airmails in the first game against Duke on his first couple throws of the game, and then he's put everything else pretty much right where it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. The one thing I'm looking for Klubnik moving forward, the boneheaded play. I would love to just say, oh, he's got to get rid of those. I'm telling you guys right now, those are going to continue to happen. Maybe not on the same scale as the Charleston Southern game, in which he made what he said was the worst play of his life. It was one of the worst quarterback plays I've ever seen. People are more focused on that than his 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, which seems a little unfair to me. But he's going to throw some picks. He's probably going to throw a pick against FSU. It's just about those coming in not a killer situation. Don't throw them in the red zone. Don't throw them when you're down or up 1 score in a pivotal spot late in games. If he throws a first half interception near midfield, gambling down the field, I can live with that. For me, pocket presence and comfort in the pocket is the main thing I'm monitoring with Klubnik going forward. I thought he did a lot better job of sticking in the pocket against Charleston Southern. He seemed a little more comfortable. His mechanics were a little bit cleaner. So for me, if Klubnik can continue to get comfortable in the system, get comfortable in the pocket, I still think he's going to have a really good season. I mean, the kid threw 4 touchdowns last week. He had flashes against Duke where I thought he made some fantastic plays. It's very evident that the talent is there, right? They don't get 5-star quarterback talent wrong. These kids are obviously talented. It's just about putting them in a position to succeed, and I think that's something that Garrett Riley, Dabo Sweeney, and the staff are going to continue to do over the course of the season.
Yeah, and speaking of pocket presence, the one thing that I want to see Cade improve on as the season goes is stepping up in the pocket. There are a few times where I notice where he drops back a little too deep, and then he just gets
Yep.
a perfect angle for the edge rusher to get to him, and that kind of rushes the throw. So, but if he steps up, our pass protection hasn't been awful this year.
It has not. And to your point, Faxon, Mickey Plyler Monday morning was talking about this team, offensively and defensively, played 133 snaps. Realistically, 3 of them, especially in that first half, are the ones that were the boneheaded plays. You look at the other 130 plays that both offensively and defensively, and the team looked good, and with the exception of those 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you want your boneheaded plays to be plays where you can catch a break, ideally going forward. Like, you want a Klubnik interception to be dropped, or you want the fumble to come at a position where it's not really going to hurt you. I think the issue in the Duke game was that you could not have timed your mistakes any more poorly. Like, the 3 drives that you have the opportunity to go in and take the lead, you turn the ball over on those 3. It was an absolute nightmare situation from the turnover front. But, you know, going forward, you can't predict when you're going to have turnovers, and Clemson's going to turn the ball over, as I stated, because Klubnik's still got a ways to go as far as his development with protecting the ball. You got to hope that those don't result in those big-time turnovers, and at the same time, you also need to do a better job from a team perspective of just holding each other accountable when those plays do happen, which I think that it's done. There's been a lot of accountability in the pressers. They know they need to clean these things up. But at the end of the day, everyone here wants to see Clemson beat Florida State, right? Everybody listening to this podcast wants to see Clemson beat Florida State. If you lose the turnover against Florida State, you're going to lose the game. They're probably the better team than you as of right now in this very moment. Does that look like it at the end of the season? We got a long ways to go. But you can lose the turnover battle against Duke and still have a chance to win like they did going in at the end. And you were only down 1 score for the longest time, even though they didn't deserve to be down 1 score. If you lose the turnover battle against Florida State, you're going to lose that football game regardless of when and where it is played. So you got to find a way to at least not shoot yourself in the foot and give yourself a chance late against Florida State. And I think it's imperative that you just under 2 turnovers against FSU, and I think you have a shot.
Absolutely. And before we transition here, I did want to throw this out there because a lot of people, I feel like, were on the edge there after that first game. You saw a lot of improvement with the receivers in the second game against Charleston Southern. What do you like out of this receiving core? Because there was some improvement from game 1 to game 2.
Yeah, so I'm interested about Stellato because I don't know about you guys, like, I'm kind of intrigued now about Stellato. Now that I know he's real, like he's a real person, like I've seen him up close in pads, and I know that Troy Stellato is a real person. He's somebody to keep your eye on because I think I might be misplaced by saying this, but they kind of force-fed him a little bit, especially towards the latter end of the game where he was out there with primarily the backups. It felt like they really wanted to get him involved, getting him a lot of screens. Stellato's fast, man. Stellato's fast, and he's a crisp route runner. He was a highly touted recruit. People forget that just because of all the injuries and stuff. So I thought he played a good game. It was good to see him on the field. Collins really just needed a game like that, if we're being fully honest with ourselves. Everybody in this call, everybody listening knows that Bo Collins is a 5-star talent. We've seen the flashes of it. At points during the freshman year, he was DJ's only option, right? There were times last year where he had some fantastic catches and fantastic plays, even with battling through that AC injury, which was terrible on his shoulder. Feels like he's finally healthy. I didn't think he had the best game against Duke, to be honest with you, when it comes to separation, but he did end that game with 5 catches for 50 yards, so it's impossible to deny that he was at least semi-productive in that game. So I think he's going to continue to get better as the season goes along, and then just keep relying on Agent Zero, man. The best wide receiver in the room right now is the alpha of the room, and it's the guy out of the slot. Antonio is a really good player. He's explosive in space, but, you know, to be honest with you, Drew and Matthew, I just think that these guys are being schemed open more than they were last year, and that is the biggest thing that we can talk about when it comes to the receiving core. I know it's Charleston Southern, and we got to take it with a grain of salt. People were wide open for the first time in what felt like a decade. And I know it's only been 2 years, but it's been a long 2 years for the Clemson offense, as you guys know. So it was really encouraging to see some open receivers, whether Klubnik was making the read or not. And then against Duke, I also thought there were some guys open. It just felt like Cade got flustered early in that game and never really got his bearings. So I'm just excited to see people open. I think the receivers can continue to grow into their roles. I still want to see more from Adam Randall. If I had to point out one person where it's like, I need to see him go get a couple. I want to see Adam. We've heard all this stuff in camp. I can personally attest. We played on the same basketball team. I can personally attest that Adam Randall is a freak athlete. I've seen it with my own two eyes. He's huge. He can jump out of the gym. He can go attack the ball in the air. I need to see it. Let's hope Adam Randall can get a couple jump ball opportunities against FAU, because I think it might be a similar scenario for Adam Randall to Bo Collins, where they just got to see one go in, right? It's like the basketball analogy. You need to see one go in the hoop. Adam Randall, maybe he just needs to come down with one-on-one ball, and then that just starts a whole new, element to the Clemson offense that we haven't seen in a couple years.
Yeah, I like your point about Troy Stellato. I honestly, before Saturday, the only time I'd ever heard that name was from playing the college football revamped series. I don't know if you know what that is, but I was running a dynasty with Clemson, and Troy Stellato ended up being wide receiver 1 after like year 2. So he is fast, and I'm happy that he exists, like you said.